All right, guys. Hey, I got kind of a heavy topic today. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about kind of like stuff related to what happened between me and my dad, like where we stopped speaking to each other. So I was 15. When I was 15, I was very rebellious and like I'd been such a good kid before. Like it was a really stark contrast all of a sudden. Like people commented on it. It was very obvious that like, whoa, where did this come from, you know? And it was caused by an epiphany I had where I realized that like I was trying so hard to impress people and like be what they wanted me to be. I wanted to be what every single person wanted me to be. But specific people were especially important. Like, of course, there's standout people like my dad. I really wanted to be good enough in his eyes or something like that. And so I just realized one day that like there's no point. It's never gonna work. Like it literally doesn't matter how hard you try. Cause like I was doing everything. It wasn't getting recognition. And it just wasn't worth it. I was trying so hard, and for what? I wasn't even making progress. Like, I was not what he wanted me to be. So I just came to the realization that it was impossible. Right? Like, he was never going to be proud of me. That was obvious. Like, it finally just, like, clicked in my mind that it's not working. And then I was just like, well, fuck this. I'm done with this. Like, that had been, like, a lot of my focus. Like, it had really been driving me. So, to change from that to just doing whatever I wanted was quite the shift. And it felt a little bit, like, destabilizing. And I found that what I wanted to do, it was a lot of self-destructive things. Like I wanted to follow my impulses, right? I wanted to have fun. I wanted to try things. Like, I not only stopped caring about what these specific people thought, but I also stopped caring about, like, having to follow the rules because it just didn't matter to me anymore. I just decided I can do whatever the fuck I want. And I decided to do it. Sorry, I'm wearing mitts. It's cold. It's December. I had to switch hands. So, I was rebelling. And one of the things I did was, well, I was going out. I was in grade 10. I was 15. And I was going out with this guy who was 19. And I guess, like, people at school were kind of, like, worried about me, like, that I was naive. Which I can see where they were coming from. Like, they were right. They were nervous that I was going to be taken advantage of, and they were nervous that I didn't know what to expect, I guess. The principal, who was a woman at the school, she sat me down and told me that the whole spiel of that a lot of girls, I'm sure, get, of, you know, boys only want one thing. They're going to try and get in your pants. And I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Whatever, lady. Get out of my face, right? And then off I go. But so anyway, skipping past that. One day, this boyfriend of mine, he was in my class too because he had failed. Like, he was also in grade 10. And we were in pre-calc together. So he was trying to, like, encourage me to go to class and not skip so much because I was skipping a lot. And he said, like, I don't know how he was trying to encourage me, but so we had pre-calc together. And one day I skipped pre-calc and he got so pissed. He was so mad. like, I realized when the skipping was the first thing that happened that I did that was bad. And when I got yelled at, like, I knew that it might happen, that I was going to get yelled at. And I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. So when it happened and I got yelled at, I realized that I didn't care about getting yelled at. Like, I would care if I hurt someone's feelings. You know? Like, I care about people. But caring about that I broke some rules that doesn't hurt anyone, like, not so much. And when they yelled at me, I thought it was funny. Like, I liked it. I realized after I left that I liked it. I liked that I got yelled at. I got a kick out of it, you know? It was a thrill. And then, yeah, so he was so mad. That's why I did that tangent. So I had skipped pre-calc. And then I was sitting, I think I was like playing in the gym with my other friend. So, who was a guy, by the way, it matters for the story. So, this guy, me and him were sitting there in the library talking, not like, I wasn't sitting on his lap or something, just sitting in a chair a good amount away. And my boyfriend saw us through the window and he was so pissed. He ran up and gave us double, like, the finger. And I thought it was so funny. Like, just like the getting yelled at, it was the same. So then, after that, I decided to leave the school for lunch, which I was allowed to. And I was alone. Like, I left alone. And the friend who I was with also left. But he was older than me. He was in grade 12. He was 18, which is the age to buy alcohol in Manitoba. So he bought alcohol over his lunch. Vodka. A Mickey of vodka. And then I noticed him in the store. That's what it was. Yeah. So then I asked if, like, we could hang out, and it was just us, me and him. And I drank with him. So this was my first time ever drinking, which no one believed afterward. Well, I mean, no, my mom, I think, believed me, but no one else. And I was telling the truth. It was my first time drinking. I drank presumably somewhere around half a Mickey of vodka, and I was like vomiting, and I was like falling all over myself. So I had to go back to the school. Like, I didn't live in town. Like, it's not like I could just go home. I had to be at the school to take the bus to go home, right? So I went back to the school and I was drunk. So this is how I got into mandatory addictions counseling. And over the course of addictions counseling, I told the therapist that I had been cutting, like, my wrist. I wasn't trying to kill myself. I was trying to let out some of the pain. So after this happened, they sent home, they informed me that they had to tell my parents. And I was nervous about that, of course. I was like, oh no, especially, like, I was worried about that they would be worried. And that's when they, I guess, decided, this was behind the scenes, I didn't know. Like, they were so freaked out, and my mom, like, pushed my dad to do something. If we don't do something, she's not going to choose life. That's what she apparently said to him. I just found this out the other day. So what he did, though, was scare the shit out of me. Which was the idea. But just when my mom told me about choosing life, it just made this whole thing seem like it was this big manipulation to get me to not be suicidal. It's just like, okay, noble cause, but what the fuck is wrong with you? So the whole thing turned into such a disaster. My relationship with my dad was already always messed up. Like, it wasn't proper. It was like, I basically viewed him as a god, like, infallible. Like, he could never be wrong. Anything he said, he was right. And I thought that he was, like, so smart and logical. Yeah, if he said something, it was like law to me. Like, that's how serious it was. So I was so scared from things that he said to me. I was really shooken up. And then after that, I think it was the next day during school, my mom took me to talk to my uncle. And talking to him, he offered, like, that I could come over to his house whenever I wanted. And it was the first time that I could, like, see that there was anywhere to go. Like, I needed to get out of there. And once I started going, like, after he offered, I went every weekend to get away. I got away all the time as much as I could. Like, I only spent weeknights at home because I was so freaked out. Like, I was just always freaked out at home that something bad was going to happen. Because sometimes it did. It was very variable. It's not like something bad happened very often, but it was that you didn't know when it was going to happen. It would just come completely out of nowhere. So often. So, this recent revelation of her explaining why my dad did this thing to me, that really, it really screwed up everything. There was after that, so after that I was going away for so long. Then, another incident happened with drinking, where my dad had been drinking, and there was, like, yelling, and that time, like, I think this must have been the next blow up after that, after me going away all the time. It must have felt like mounting tension for everyone, I'm sure. Like, I felt so much tension. I was so freaked out the whole time I was at home. Like, I just couldn't wait to be out of there. And I remember this last blow up with him, like, yelling and just being so ridiculous that, and I was actually for once, like, fighting back. I was actually, like, yelling back at him, like, which was so much of a departure. Like, this was big. This was a change. Me fighting back. After that, there was, my mom and me and my sister, my brother was there too, I guess, like, he was with us. We all left home together, and we went to the police station and made statements. I'm not sure if my sister, I think she did maybe have a statement too. But you know how the court system is, it takes so long to get things happening. And so they recanted their statements slowly over time as, like, it got closer. And, like, I felt like there was all this pressure on me to be like, no, actually it didn't happen. I felt like everyone was being like, you should just be quiet now. You should just pretend you're fine. You should say it wasn't real. And I just couldn't stand that idea of having to bite back my words that I'd finally had been brave enough to say. Like, I was finally realizing that I didn't deserve to be treated like that. That I didn't deserve any of this. I deserved better. So I just couldn't stomach that idea at all, and I felt really betrayed. And so after that, like, there was a long time where I held the grudge, and it felt like in a way that the anger was like protecting me. But over time, the grudge went away. And I used to have this old habit of, like, I was really, like, I can definitely fall into the trap of doing, like, black and white thinking. But also sometimes I feel like I have learned to see nuance a lot more. But it feels gross sometimes. Like, you know what I mean? You miss the times when things were more simple. Like, it's nice for things to be simple. And this whole thing with this explanation coming so much later, like, this happened when I was 17 and I'm 35. And it's just in the last few days that I heard this story. Like, I did connect that about that they thought I had been suicidal and maybe this was an attempt to try to keep me alive. But still, I was just like, you can't do that to a kid. Like, and could you at least be sorry? Like, I never have gotten an apology. There's no apology. Not only do I not get an apology, but the real victim is him. Somehow. Which just makes me feel like, so if you're the victim, then I'm this person painting you in this bad light. Like, you're the victim and I'm the villain then, right? The person who you said these things to, the person who is horrified. Like, I was so scared. I thought I was gonna die. And I pointed out to my mom when she said it that way, like, they wanted me to choose life. I pointed out to her that it didn't work. I didn't choose life. I chose to die. Like, when I went up to bed, I thought I was gonna die. Well, I thought, I'm either gonna die or I'm not. If I don't, I have school tomorrow. So I should try to get some sleep. Of course, it took me a while to get to sleep. But I knew that, like, if I was gonna have to fight for my life that night, that I was not gonna win. I was gonna lose. I knew I was gonna die. I didn't choose to fight. I chose to lie there and wait for death to come to me. So I'm just so disturbed that, like, I feel like I did maybe kind of indulge in this black and white thinking of, like, I was the victim of this, right? And he's the perpetrator. Like, he's the bad guy. Sometimes I did paint him as more of a monster maybe than he really was. And I feel like I did come back from that and not see him as much of a monster. And also now I'm a parent myself, so, like, I have that new perspective and understanding of the challenges of being a parent. And it's not like because you're a parent you're, like, now suddenly a genius, like, and you know how everything's going to affect everyone. But yeah, like, I was protecting myself in a way with black and white thinking, I think. And this new information, I feel like, kind of, like, nudged me into this idea of, like, the grays, the nuance. Like, there is more nuance. Like it especially because it introduced another character into it. That my mom was actually the one who triggered this event to occur. Like, I'm sure she didn't plan it. Like, my dad would have come up with what he was going to say to me by himself. It's not like they would have decided what to say together. Certainly not. If you knew them, you'd understand what I'm saying. He was told to do something. He figured out on his own how to do it, and he did it. But the fact that she was involved and that she said that, like, so much of a spur. Obviously, I guess she was the one who got the call, right? So she was the one who had to tell him. She was the one who got told by the therapist. So, like, she didn't have a choice about that. Like, really, I think it would have been a lot better if the person would have spoke to my dad herself. Yeah, and taken away that. And also, shouldn't they have known that? What? Like, they did know that my dad drank, because we had talked about that, you know, it has to do with addictions, right? We did talk about my dad's drinking, which I'm not saying he was an alcoholic, but just, I noticed that there was drinking, and there was a bad scene sometimes associated with the drinking. So, like, I'm not saying that makes you an alcoholic, right? But it was just something that came up in therapy. So yeah, it feels really destabilizing having this come up, because I feel like it's taking away, it's taking away the simpleness of the story, and it almost makes me feel like that when I've told people about it, that it was a lie, like, because it wasn't complete, it wasn't thorough. Like, this detail is very important, and also it's a redeeming detail about the bad guy of the story, because he really comes off as the bad guy, and I have, like, tried to not always make him look like a bad guy, like, because so many people in my life at this point, like, it's been so many years since I've been around him at all or talking to him, so many people have only heard stories from me, and then they have this idea of this really dark character that is my dad. And I don't like that, because I'm like, that's not all there was, but I'm not just, like, brimming with all these happy stories about my dad either. So, like, it doesn't really balance out. But, like, there were good times. Like, you know, he's a real person. He's a complicated character, like we all are. Like, we're complex, multifaceted people. And it's just so frustrating. And now he's like, apparently gonna probably die. My mom basically made it sound like, she was like, he smokes heavily. Just like he used to, or kind of something like that. And I was like, he didn't smoke. Like, not as far as I knew. He smoked so little that it was a secret. And he smoked so little that you couldn't tell when he went all day without a smoke. Because when we used to go fishing, we were on a boat, a small boat. He wasn't smoking on there. He was fine. He wasn't, like, getting agitated throughout the day. Anyway, so yeah, apparently he can, like, barely breathe now, which is great. So, like, I mean, I always thought, obviously, like, he's older than me. I always thought that maybe he would die before me, and I always thought that maybe he would die without having spoken to me again. Like, maybe he'll never give me another chance. Because that's where we are at now. Like, I have reached out several times trying to, like, I've told other people, I told the rest of my family that, like, I would be willing to try to have a relationship with him again. And I reached out to him, I wrote him a letter. Like, I live far away now, but I wrote him a letter that was really heartfelt, and I think I'm maybe even apologizing about certain things, even though I was kind of uncomfortable with that. But it just really hurts, because I feel like, yeah, I kind of feel like it enforces this idea that I was the bad guy, that it's actually not him who we're waiting to come around. I'm the one who needs to come around, right? Which I really didn't want to make that mistake of, like, I'm not coming back to him and begging him to take me back. I'm not doing that. And I'm not apologizing for making a statement to the police. I'm not apologizing that I was going to go to court to back up what I fucking said. It was the truth. I don't have to lie for you. Like, why don't you just not do these horrible things if you don't want people to know about it? Just don't do it then. I don't know, maybe I don't sound very forgiving. But it also is harder to forgive someone if they never say sorry. He's said the word sorry to me before about something. But he followed it with, but this. And it was, like, it's not just that I'm sensitive. The buts were a little bit too much. He was saying sorry, but then he was explaining exactly why he was correct in saying the thing he said. Like, the things he said after but completely took away anything to do with sorry. Like, when he first said sorry, it's like, oh, he's sorry. But then as you're listening, you're like, no, he completely thinks that. He's in no way sorry. The apology felt like a slap in the face. And I'm just, yeah, I think that's what it is. I feel like that means, like, oh, it's really no one's fault. It's just a tough situation, right? Like, it's no one's fault. I mean, what was he to do? And you were a really challenging child. Your poor parents. You know? Like, I didn't want to fall into that trap totally. Like, I don't want to switch from one side to the other of, like, completely blaming myself for what happened. And I'm not. I don't think it was my fault. But I feel less like it's his fault now. And feeling less like it's his fault sucks. It was nice to feel more like the blame was totally on him. Because I feel like the more you take the blame off of a specific person, the more it becomes like this nebulous thing that just, like, happened. And if you feel angry about it, it's like, what are you angry at? Because I don't think you should be mad at any of the people. And then that makes you feel like you can't be angry at anything. Like, there's nowhere to direct your anger. I don't know if people understand what I'm really getting at. I feel like this video probably is all over the place. I recently learned about this thing called dolphining, where I guess autistic people they'll say something and then it seems like they say something totally different, and they'll do that multiple times, and then they'll come back to other points, and then they'll come back to tangents, you know, and everything, like, weaves together. But if you don't see the connections, it just seems crazy. Like, it just seems chaotic. But really, it does all link together if you understood. Yeah. That's definitely what I did in this video. Like, I meandered all over the place. At one point when I was talking, I was just like, I'm not even talking about my dad and my relationship. I've gone, like, way into the past. But yeah, I think this was a good video. Like, that event really shaped me. It really changed my life. Because I moved out of home when I was 17, before I was done grade 12. And I never came back again. Like, I visited maybe twice after that house. And they don't live there anymore. Which is sad to me, because I love that house. And I wish there was some way for me to still be able to go to that house. And maybe there's not. Like, it's a really sentimental place for me. I don't think of my childhood as being bad. I think of it as being magical. It can be tough sometimes. I tell ya. I hope you guys are having a good day.